Good morning. Welcome to Global Media Network, LLC, Passionate World Talk Radio, a wholly owned subsidiary of GMN LLC. Our motto is educate, enlighten, entertain. And this morning, our special guest is Abigail Wild, owner of Wild Inc. Publishing. So, good morning, Abby. How are you feeling this beautiful blue sky day?
Good morning. Yeah, it's blue sky. Unfortunately, those beautiful spring flowers are blooming, which is making my eyes very I'm allergic to everything outside right now.
Okay, well then, aren't you lucky I didn't insist we do this outside?
True, very true. Although a picnic would be lovely, but very true.
We'll have to do that sometime.
I think
All
that would be
right.
fun. Mhm.
I think so too. So why don't you tell everybody why you decided to become when you grew up to own a publishing company?
Okay, well, I've been a graphic designer for 25 years, forever. And during that time, I spent a lot of time designing book covers for authors. And so I finally thought to myself, I want to write a book, you know? And so I started writing a book. It didn't go quite well because I didn't know exactly how to do it. I didn't understand outlining, I didn't understand plot methods. And so I signed up and was accepted into a MFA, Master of Fine Arts program for creative writing. And they helped me to write my first book, The Art of Drowning, right here. And while I was in the MFA program, we actually did have a lot of publishing classes, a lot of business, a lot of marketing classes. And it was just kind of like a little thing in the back of my head, like publishing company. You should start a publishing company. But I'm always terrified of like starting companies and things because I feel like I'm going to mess up on taxes and end up in jail, like through no fault, just like because I don't know what I'm doing. Um, and so, it was constantly back there. By the time I had graduated, I had produced about 8 anthologies with groups of authors all over the world. And I liked that process. I was always the coordinator for that process. I enjoyed it. And one day I had an idea. Usually I would farm out the books to other publishers. And one day I had the idea that to do this book called Into the Mirror. And Into the Mirror is basically looking at what is kind of driving a hole through a writer's mind or heart. And basically, like telling their innermost secrets, telling their innermost soul, their innermost thoughts. And so I pulled that together. And a lot of authors really wanted to do this. So the basis for it wasn't fiction, it was getting to know authors, what makes them do what they do. And we had a publisher, the publisher fell through. And so I said to myself, okay, well, I still want this to get out because I have 30 authors here who really want to see this book as a published. And I started Wild Inc. just to publish that one book. I started a whole company just for that one book. I had no thoughts of growing much bigger than that. I had a job, I had all these things, other things that I was doing. I was teaching English at the time. I didn't really know where I wanted to go with it. But then a friend in my area in Harrisburg, who is a poet, a lovely poet, I have her book here, Count Each Breath by Maria James Chow. She came to me and said, hey, I have these poetry, all about COVID, all about 2020, all about being an African American Black chronically ill woman, what it was like going through the COVID. And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And then another friend came to me and said, hey, would you help me publish this? Would you publish this for me? And I'm like, yeah, let's do it. And then it just kept going. I'm like, okay, this is becoming a thing. And I love it. I absolutely love it because what I can do is aid new authors, debut authors in getting their work out. And I decided to make it a thing. So I kind of find myself as like an accidental publisher, but I'm happy that I did this because Nothing is greater to me than a brand new debut author holding their book in the hand for the first time. That is such a special feeling to me. And to me, that means I'm winning. To me, that means I'm succeeding, because it makes that one person who probably wouldn't have had a chance with, Penguin, Random House, I've given them a platform to get their words out. And that means everything to me. And so, yeah, that's the story of Wild Ink.
That's pretty wild. All right. You have described yourself as a hybrid / traditional. So why don't you explain that to the listeners? Because I think hybrid is a new terminology that has not been bandying around the book community for a long period of time. And it may explain to some people what's it all about.
Okay. So actually, we're just traditional. We are not hybrid at all, but we do offer services. But let's talk about what hybrid means first of all. There are basically three different tracks to publishing. Okay. There is self publishing, hybrid or vanity press, and traditional publishing. I am a traditional publisher. Traditional publisher means that the person comes to me, I go through so many submissions. We have so many submissions, and I choose which ones or I don't choose. I have a team that chooses which ones I'm going to invest in. So the author pays nothing up front, and we all kind of take a piece of the revenue at the end. But it is me, out of like my own pay, from my day job, who invests in these authors and pays to have them published, and then hopefully make it back, with sales.
Right.
That is traditional. Hybrid is when the author comes in and says, hey, publish my book. I will pay you this amount of money for you to publish my book. And now they might get revenue at the end, but really the publisher makes the money upfront off of the back of the author. There are a lot of lovely hybrid companies out there, publishing companies out there. There's nothing wrong with those. At the same time, there are publishing companies that do this that are kind of scammers. And they would be called vanity presses. And so what they do is they take your $5,000 to publish your book, which is generally the going rate, and then they do the bare minimum. They don't truly edit. They go through Grammarly. They might order a cover from someone on Fiverr for like $10, and they call it a day. There's no like marketing afterwards. There's no guidance afterwards. They get your book out. They take your $5,000, and that's the end of it. And so that's a problem to me. And so it's really hard for authors to figure out who is hybrid and who is vanity. So you really have to do your research. Websites like Writers Beware it's really great to check up on on publishers who are doing that type of press. But Wild Ink actually doesn't do that, because I want to stay traditional. Now, the one thing we do is self-publishing services. And so what an author might say, I just need a book edited. I don't want you to publish it, but I'd like to have this book edited. And so what I do is I go to one of my freelancers and I say, hey, how much would you charge to edit this exact book? They'll give me a quote. I'll let the author know. And then they work with the freelancer. So I can give them services. I can help them find their way through it. And so we do all sorts of things. We do editing, we do cover design, we do layout, we do illustration, marketing help. We do video trailers for books, things like that a self-publishing author can come in and say, I would like just this one service. And we do that. And we love to do that, because I do think that self-publishing is a viable path. It's not right for everybody, because then you are basically your own project coordinator, and that stresses a lot of people out. But for a lot of people, it's the best way for them to go. And so I like to support all the different publishing paths. So that's what I do. Traditional and self-publishing help.
Now, is it true that if you're not published by one of the traditional publishers, that is going to determine how well your book is accepted or not? I know that's another myth that's running around.
It is a myth. It is a myth. Yeah, no, absolutely not. There are plenty of self-published authors who have gained a lot of success. I know many of them who have self-published on their own. They make six figures a year. You know, they do very well. Now it's hard, and you have to be dedicated, and you have to be willing to spend money to make sure that you have a professional editor, because people don't like when a book is not edited, and a really nice cover, because the really nice cover is what people look at first that makes them click on it or walk past it in a bookstore and pick it up. So as long as they have a good editor and a cover designer, they're good. There are plenty of people who make their full-time living on writing books and self-publishing them themselves. At the same time, sometimes very successful self-published books, a larger publisher might come in and offer them money to publish it. So they could have like a romance. This happens a lot in romance. So there could be a romance book that is just flying off the shelves. A publisher like Random House would come in and say, hey, we want to represent you, we want to publish your book, and then they've got it made. So it is actually, it can be a path to traditional publishing, or it can be a path to your own income. Now it's hard. It is hard because I believe Amazon, it's like a day there's like 100,000 books uploaded a day or something like that. So the competition is tough. So the main key, if you want to self-publish, is you really need to learn how to market yourself. Without the marketing, you're just another book clogging up Amazon. You need to be able to market yourself, and that's the main thing. And that's the difference, honestly, between a self-publishing author that doesn't go anywhere, maybe sells 5 books, between one that is actually making a living.
Are ebooks comparable to getting your book published and
Yes.
a copy?
Yes.
So if you do ebooks, there's another myth saying that if you do an ebook, well, you're not a serious author.
Mm-hmm.
You're just doing it as a hobby, which absolutely infuriates me.
Yes. So now, that's not to say there are people who are doing it as a hobby, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Everybody has their own wants and desires and what they want to get out of it. But no, ebooks are absolutely a legitimate book. They are books, and the ebook industry is huge. Even the large guys, the big New York 5 publishing houses, they will have books that just go straight to Kindle. You know, so that happens everywhere. Yeah, no, ebook, it's a huge industry. Not only that, it's great for the environment. So,
Yeah.
you know, we don't need
Yeah.
all that money, you know. But for Wild Ink, we actually sell more paper books than we do ebooks. We offer ebooks on almost all of our books, but most people still want to be able to hold a book.
Yes. And if
Yeah.
they're like my granddaughters, they like to put little pieces of colored paper on their favorite mattresses. So when you open up the book and flutter the pages, you can see the
Yeah,
different colors flip by too.
that's so sweet. I
Isn't
love
it
that.
nice?
That
Yeah,
is
I
nice.
was watching my granddaughter read a book like that, and I'm saying, and they're marked, oh, grandma, there's some really good things that I need to remember. And I'm like, okay, fine. I
Oh,
used to use paper clips. I guess it's the same thing.
yeah,
Now,
yeah.
when people want to submit their books,
Hmm.
and I'm pretty sure as a publishing company, there are different types of books you
Hmm.
will
Hmm.
accept. Most people never seem to read the directions. I don't know why, but why don't we make it easy for them and easier on their eyes by telling them the types of books, fiction or nonfiction, that
Hmm.
you accept and how you expect them to submit their book. Another biggie, because most people don't read Google first to find out what different publishing houses require.
Right, right. So we are actually closed for submissions right now because we got such a large amount of books at one time. So we're closed for submissions right now. But for us, we take children's books, we take poetry books, and fiction. So and all sorts of fiction, but mostly most of our novels are actually YA, but yeah. So anything, but yes, you have to, each publishing company and each agent, if you're going the agent route, has their own directions for how they want you to submit. And so if you are preparing your file, don't think like it's prepared for this house, so it's going to be fine everywhere. It's not. Every single company has their own methods and own standards for submitting. So basically what we do is you have to submit the first 10, you have to submit the first 10,000 words. You need to submit a small bio. You need to submit what are your comparable novels. Comp novels do at least 3 comp novels, and a synopsis. And from that, we will decide, okay, do we want to read the whole manuscript? And that is asking for a full. So if we ask for a full, then they send us the full manuscript. So don't query anybody unless the entire book is done, because someone could come along and say, like in one day, hey, by 3 o'clock today, I need your full. So you have to be ready to send your full. So you just can't do the first few chapters. And so that's what we do. It is hard because there are also query letters, and that is a practice of its own. A lot of people actually hire people to write their query letters because, let's face it, novelists use a lot of words, and a query letter has to be 1 page. It's really hard for novelists, but I wish that authors didn't hire somebody to write their query letters, because it actually shows us their writing chops. If they're able to write about their book in 1 page, they're good writers, And then there's also a synopsis. A synopsis is a play-by-play of your book, and that should only be 2-3 pages. This is not the place where you're going to be like, cliffhanger, see what happens next. No, the agent or the publisher wants to know exactly what is in the book, play by, like almost like a shot list for movies. This happens, then this happens, then this happens, then this happens. And they're incredibly hard to write. But it gives us a view into, okay, are we going to take time for this? Are we going to sit and read the first 10,000 words? All of this leads to reading those first 10,000 words. And if you don't follow the directions, if you don't send a bio written in third person point of view, if you don't send a synopsis, if you don't send a query letter, and you don't send your comps, we're probably not going to read it because you haven't read the instructions, and we need to know that you're going to follow instructions,
Not only that, go on Google and put writers. It's a magazine. It's been around for at least 100 years. I was using it back in the 70s and 80s when I ventured into writing, and it will show you examples, ladies and gentlemen, of what the publishers across the board expect. Make sure you follow them. So for a youth novel, it's usually between 45 and 50,000 words. So don't send them 100,000 word manuscript. It will be rejected out of hand. Rejections are hard things to take, but they're also a learning tool for you. But your best thing is to go and take a look at books already published in your category and glance through them. Take a look at the table of contents. To me, contents is an outline of the book. It should be telling you what chapter is each chapter about. When I started doing it, the traditional companies used to ask for a chapter by chapter synopsis and outline. And basically, they wanted to see your thinking process of how you went from A to B to B and C. And so, ladies and gentlemen, you really need to tell your kids if they want to write a book, which is wonderful. They also need to read the requirements. Gone are the days when there was a 15 or 16-year-old student educated at home and his first book was picked up out of the blue. He was lucky. That type of luck doesn't always occur.
So, and the one thing to add to that, generally speaking, when books are denied, it usually has nothing to do with the writing capabilities. They want to buy things for market, because we all know there have been books that have been published that have been awful, but because it was right for the market, they went blockbusters. Okay, they went all out and they sold millions of copy because they hit the market right. And so if your book gets turned down, it might just mean that the market conditions are not correct for your book. At the same time, it could be that you targeted the wrong agent or publishing company. If you're sending, just don't send things out to like all the agents, you know, pick an agent that represents books that are similar to yours and you have a better chance. Also, it's called writing to market. If you want to get published traditionally, you're going to have to write to market. You're going to have to figure out what the trends are for yourself and write towards that. Not everybody wants to do that, which is why self-publishing exists. Like, there's always a market for something as long as you can market yourself. There's always a reader for you. But for the large guys, yeah, it doesn't matter. They could have the greatest novel ever written, and they will deny it because the market conditions are not correct. So when you get those letters saying, "I'm sorry, it's not the right time right now," pat yourself on the back and congratulate yourself, because the fact of the matter is that that means that you are in the game. I used to tell students, like, in my office when I was working at a local college, I was like, I'm going to line my office with my rejections because I am proud of my rejections because it means I am in the game. And you have to understand, even the big writers get denied. They have stacks of rejections, and that's okay. There's
And you
no
should also know,
inconsistency.
too, that just because it's a bestseller doesn't necessarily mean it's written well.
Right.
So don't get upset.
Right.
I have read plenty of bestsellers and the writing was crappy,
Yes,
but
absolutely.
it appealed to the general market. And whether you like it or not, these larger companies, Penguin, Harcall, they have stockholders.
Hmm.
So if they're going to invest in your book and give you an advance, they need to make that money back
Yeah.
for their shareholders.
Yeah.
And if they don't feel that they can make that money back, that also determines whether or not you'll be published. So it's nothing personal. It's what
Hmm.
my husband used to call a crap shoot. It just
Absolutely.
depends how the dice are rolled and
Absolutely.
it hits the black thing. I don't know much about gambling, excuse me.
I don't either. Yeah, no, absolutely. I have a friend who used to be an agent. She's no longer an agent, and she just basically said she got stacks and stacks. And this was before email and like submittable, but like she would get stacks and stacks of them a day, and it was just so much and so overwhelming that she would like look for reasons to deny. And so if like vampires aren't in. She's any vampire book, done, gone, out, out, out. Werewolves are in. Werewolf books, in. Romance books, friends to lovers, in trope. Let's do that. Let's look for friends to lovers. Oh, but the pregnancy trope and romance is out right now. Out, 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 out. And that's how quickly it went. And then the stack of manuscripts that were kept because of the market, those are the ones she read because there was no possible way she could read them all. That's a
Absolutely. So now that we've enlightened the audience of what they need to do, the one thing we didn't bring up, which I do think is important, if you do approach traditional publishing companies, ladies and gentlemen, have your marketing plan written up. They will not accept a submission without that marketing plan. And you're going to say, but I don't know the market. And I'm going to tell you, go out and learn about it before you write that book, because they'll want you to go out and see what your competition in that same category or topic that you're discussing in your book and see how that is doing and compare it to yours.
Mhm.
So marketing plans are essential. Whether you go with a traditional publishing company now, I understand they expect the author to be part of the marketing plan
Yes.
now. Gone
Yes.
are the days of, dare I say it, Jessica Fletcher, where you just submit a book and they do the rest. It's
Right.
no longer there.
No. It's a partnership. It really is a partnership where the author has to be doing their part and the publishing company has to be doing their part. Yeah, definitely. So that's why I say comp novels, comparable novels, novels that are similar to yours in some way. Let the publishing company know that. Let the publishing company know how many followers on social media you have. This is actually really important. When I was in my MFA program about 5 years ago, we learned that you needed 10,000 social media followers. Now it's up to 40. So while you're writing your book, you need to be working on your following. You need to get that beefed up. So, and I don't even have 40,000,
I
but
don't even
it's a
have
little
100.
impossible. Yeah. Yeah. So, you have to constantly, you have to show that you do have a market. Because what I like to tell my authors at Wild Ink is the first time people buy your book, like for your debut novel, the first time they buy a book, they buy it because they love the author. The second time they buy it because they love your words. You need to get them into that. So you need to get your audience to know you. You have to have them fall in love with you. And this is so hard for a lot of authors because a lot of authors are introverts, but it is so essential. Like they have to do it. Yeah.
Absolutely. I was told that when you start writing your book, you start marketing
Mm-hmm.
it
Mm-hmm.
and get out first word
Mm-hmm.
of mouth,
Mm-hmm.
and then start letting them know or sharing with them. If you belong to a writers group, share with them part of your
Right.
novel.
Right.
Ask them for their advice. You'll be surprised. Put it on Twitter. I got 3 million people listening to my radio station by putting it on Twitter, because
Yep.
in the old days they just kept on retweeting it. And a lot of these people have large newsletter email followers,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
they would share it with them. So it just exploded. And
Yeah.
you have to, I'm sorry to say this, but as a former introvert, you have to take risks. You have to take leaps
Yeah.
of faith. And don't take this the wrong way, but you have to expose yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. You do. You just have to figure out. And the thing is, you don't have to be on all social media networks. Figure out what works for you the best. Everybody has their own niche. Figure out where your readers are. If you're writing YA, you might want to be on TikTok and on Tumblr. If you're writing for middle-aged women, you're going to want to be on Instagram and Facebook. So you have to figure out where you are most comfortable and where your readers are. It's very
Exactly.
important.
You have to have your target audience, and it will
Mhm.
not hurt you if you try to find somebody who does podcasts or a
Mhm.
blog and contact them and ask them, would they be interested?
Mhm.
That's the same way you go and get your reviewers on Amazon. I've had a lot of people say, I don't know where to go. Amazon publishes a list of their top 100 reviewers, and
Mhm.
they tell you what categories they like to review your book.
Yeah.
And if you know how to write, you should just write them, Dear John, I've written a book on how Alistair Cook got his voice by
Mhm.
speaking around pebbles. And you may be surprised that they will answer you
Mhm.
because they like to be asked first. And then you'll get a top 100 reviewer from Amazon. And it does make a difference,
It
but you
does.
have to put yourself out there.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. So, yeah, just keep at it, keep writing, build your platform. You should have a newsletter. I say this, I don't have a newsletter. I don't have time for a newsletter because I'm both writing, working, and running a publishing company. But you should have a newsletter with an email list. That is really important.
And a website.
And a website.
And you
And a
should write a
website.
blog about your experience
Yes.
as an author. No author has the same experience.
Mhm.
Trust me.
Mhm.
If you're a mom raising teens and you've written a book and you want to get it out, encourage your teens to talk to their friends, because a lot of parents do listen to their kids and they
Mhm.
want to know what they're reading.
Yeah.
And that's how you do it. And one other piece of advice, go alert the homeschool market. It's a huge enterprise now. And there are groups of parents and even state groups of parents who would be quite interested in the books you write.
Mhm.
And also go to the PTA.
Yeah.
That's another place.
Yeah.
Try out your local Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts,
Mhm.
historical, fine. Contact some of the museums in your
Mhm.
local area. I mean, the world has opened up, ladies and gentlemen. Just go on Google and ask. That's all you need to do, and
Yeah.
you will be surprised at the
Mhm.
plethora of opportunities that will open up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So yeah, that's I love what I do. I love helping authors. Writing is a passion of mine. I do like teen authors. That's why I just produced a anthology of from my English class from last year from when I was teaching. And so that came out, the Broken Minds, Inside the Broken Minds. That came out. And then tomorrow, if I may, this book comes out, Men Unlike Others Volume 2. Volume 1 is already out. Volume 2 is coming out tomorrow. This is a book of poetry. Written by an autistic gay man who is sitting on a train and he is wondering what everybody on the train is thinking about. And so it kind of, that's why that's the train station. It kind of goes into what each person has going on in their mind and what they're experiencing in life. And so we're excited about that one. He's a great poet, he's a genius.
Excellent. Send them my way. I'll put them on my podcast.
I will let him know. He would love that.
Poetry does very well over the
Mhm.
airwaves,
Yeah.
especially if they're a quote genius level unquote.
Oh,
They do
yeah.
very well. So,
Yeah.
Abby, do you have any piece of advice for aspiring writers?
Uh, build your community. Build your community of readers and other writers. Now, don't market to other writers, market to the readers, but build that community. Find someone who can be your critique partner, and listen to the advice that they give you, and you can critique theirs back and forth. But yeah, community is a huge thing for authors. Don't hide away in your room, never coming out to talk to the community. Be a part of a community. And you could do that online. You can do that. Facebook has a lot of writing groups. Twitter is an amazing resource for writers. A lot of publishers, a lot of agents are on Twitter. And so that's a great place to go if you're a writer to talk about writing. You can get noticed there. But also, there are local workshops for writers. Join those. Join your local art community because they support each other. So you have visual artists and dancers and actors and writers all communing together. And that actually is a great way to get started because you get to know the right people that way.
Absolutely. And one other thing, if there are any conventions in your home state, there are a lot of writers' conventions. And if nothing else, go attend one just to see what everybody else is saying. They usually have masquerades where you can dress up in a costume of your choice and go and see what other people are thinking, because I used to do that a lot during the 90s. And it really does make you feel a lot better that there are other people out you experiencing the same problems, triumphs, and it's a great way to broaden your network.
Absolutely.
And that's what publishing is all about, ladies and
Yeah.
gentlemen.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, how can people contact the publishing company or contact you?
Okay, so the publishing company is wild-inc-publishing.com. My email is abigail at wild-inc-publishing.com. And we have our books all over. So we have Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, Amazon, all over the globe.
Do you have a date when you will be reopening to submissions?
We may be looking at the fall. Not exactly sure because we still aren't finished reading through the ones from last October. But the goal is in the fall, but we'll see if that happens. So I would maybe look around January.
Okay, great. Thank you very
Yeah.
much. Thank
Mhm.
you all very much for listening to our interview with Abigail Wild, owner of Wild-Inc. Publishing. You can listen to this all over again on youtube.com/PWR network _PWTR. Also on facebook.com/Passionate World Radio. Also on https://passionateworldtalkradio.com. Instagram.com/PWTR, and possibly all the other video directories that are out there. You can't miss us. I want to thank you very much for listening. And everybody, have a great April, and I'll see you folks in May. Thank you very much.
Thank you.